Some people say the worst kind of pain is a clean break, but they're wrong. The worst kind of pain is the slow ache of a hinge that refuses to swing open or shut. For 730 days, that was us. 2 full years of existing in the quiet, agonizing space of an almost. Every town has a place where time seems to slow down, and for us, it was the old limestone ridge overlooking the valley, just past the county line. If you grew up out here, you know the type of heat that settles over the fields in July. It's thick, heavy, and makes every word feel like it takes extra effort to say. That's probably why we left so much unsaid. We were masters of the unspoken, gold medalists in the art of the lingering glance and the sudden, awkward laugh that rescues you right when a conversation gets a little too real. His name was Jesse. He wasn't the type of guy who commanded a room by shouting. He did it by simply being the anchor in it. He had these quiet, steady hands that could fix a busted tractor engine in the dark or calm a panicked colt with just a touch on the halter. But when it came to his own heart, those hands were always locked tight in his pockets. We started out the way most good things in the country do, slowly, almost accidentally. A shared truck ride to haul hay, a couple of cold drinks on a Friday night after the lights went down at the local stadium, and suddenly, we were a permanent fixture in each other's lives. Except we weren't. Not officially. For 2 years, my world was a masterclass in reading between the lines. It was the way he'd always make sure my truck had a full tank of gas before a winter storm, never saying he worried about me, just handing over the keys with a brief nod. It was the way his voice dropped an octave whenever he called me late at night, asking about nothing at all, just wanting to hear another soul on the line while the crickets hummed on his porch. You can live a whole life in those spaces, you know. You can convince yourself that the almost is enough because the alternative, asking the real question and risking the answer, is too terrifying to face. Every season change felt like a milestone we were passing without crossing the finish line. In the fall, when the air turned crisp and the smell of wood smoke filled the valley, we'd sit close together on the tailgate of his Chevy, sharing a thermal flask of black coffee. Our shoulders would touch, just a solid, warm pressure through our flannel shirts. In those moments, the silence between us was so heavy it felt like a third person sitting there. I would look at the profile of his jaw, strong and tight, and I could swear he was right on the precipice of delivering the words I'd been rehearsing in my head for months. He'd turn his head, his eyes would lock onto mine, the air would leave my lungs, and then, he'd look back out at the horizon and comment on the weather. Another near miss. Another page turned in a book we refused to finish writing. My friends told me I was crazy. They told me a man who wants you lets you know, plain and simple, without the riddle. But country boys raised by grandfathers who only spoke when the house was on fire don't exactly come with an instruction manual for emotional vulnerability. I knew Jesse. I knew the quiet cadence of his life. I knew he carried things he didn't share, ghosts of old family arguments and the heavy weight of taking over a legacy that was struggling to survive. So, I waited. I kept my own feelings tucked away like an old photograph in a drawer, bringing them out only when I was alone, wondering if I was pouring my life into a vessel that had a leak. The second year was harder than the first. The novelty of the unspoken bond started to wear thin, replaced by a dull, persistent frustration. It's exhausting to love someone who treats your heart like a fragile glass vase they're afraid to hold too tightly. We went to weddings together as platonic dates, dancing close enough to feel each other's heartbeats, yet waking up the next morning to the same familiar boundary. We went to funerals, standing side by side in the damp churchyard, his hand gripping mine for comfort, but only until the dirt was shoveled over the grave. We were woven into each other's lives like briars in a fence line, impossible to untangle without drawing blood, but never officially forming a single structure. Then came the second anniversary of our unspoken arrangement. It wasn't marked on any calendar, but I knew the date down to the hour. It was late August, the time of year when the humidity finally breaks and the first cool breeze hints at the autumn to come. A massive thunderstorm had rolled through the county the night before, knocking down old oak branches and leaving the air smelling of ozone and wet earth. Jesse had called me early, his voice rough from sleep, asking if I wanted to take a drive up to the ridge to see the creek rise. We climbed up the gravel road in his truck, the tires crunching against the wet stone. The valley below was covered in a thick layer of morning mist, looking like a white ocean with only the tops of the red barns piercing through the surface. We parked in our usual spot, right where the trees cleared out. The engine cut out, and that familiar, deep silence filled the cab. For the first 10 minutes, we just watched the fog drift. I looked over at him. He was staring at the steering wheel, his thumbs tracing the worn leather grip. There was a line of tension in his forehead that hadn't been there before. The air inside the truck felt different this time, not heavy with hesitation, but charged, like the lightning that had split the sky the night before. I realized then that I couldn't do another year of this. The almost had run its course. It was either time to step across the line or walk away entirely, even if walking away meant breaking my own heart into a million pieces. I opened my mouth to say something, to finally be the one to break the dam, but before the first syllable could leave my lips, Jesse shifted in his seat. He turned completely toward me, his movements deliberate, almost solemn. He reached out, his calloused fingers gently catching my chin, turning my face so I had no choice but to look directly into his eyes. They weren't guarded anymore. The wall he had spent 2 years building was completely gone, leaving him looking more vulnerable than I had ever seen a man look. He took a slow, deep breath, the kind a man takes right before he jumps off a high ledge into deep water. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of every single day we had wasted, every glance we had traded, and every secret we had kept in the dark. He said, "I am so tired of pretending that you are just my friend, and I am so sorry it took me 2 years to find the courage to tell you that I have been completely, utterly in love with you since the very first day I saw you on this ridge." The words didn't just fall into the space between us, they shattered it. All the built-up tension, the years of wondering, the sleepless nights spent analyzing every text and every handshake, it all evaporated in the span of a single sentence. I didn't answer right away, not because I didn't know what to say, but because for the first time in 2 years, the silence wasn't a burden. It was a relief. The hinge had finally swung open, and as he leaned in, the slow burn finally caught fire, turning 2 years of almost into a lifetime of completely.